Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. It's the 7th of the month. Let's do our market walk like every month. I've really come to love filming these videos, just yapping into the camera for about an hour, and it seems like I get really good feedback from a certain part of the audience on them. So I've gone ahead and opened up all the tabs I'll need, all the things that look interesting. First up, Kaldheim set booster boxes, 150 bucks. What have these done over the last 6 months? Wow. 121 to 150, so 25% gain in the last 6 months on something that at one time we would have thought would never gain any value. Kaldheim kind of flopped as a set. You know, Watsy tried to say, oh, this is the best selling snow themed set ever. Yeah. But now you give enough years for inventory of boxes to get whittled down, and $150 each. It's just interesting to watch these continue to march up, where the collector boxes have taken a breather. We'll get to those eventually, but the Kaldheim collector boxes have actually pulled back just a tiny bit recently. Zendikar Rising may be one of the worst examples of printed to oblivion. This has been out of print for years, and it still just is having a lot of trouble catching any kind of wind over the last 6 months. Yeah, from only getting 20% over the last 6 months. Can you believe we say that in this market, in the TCG investment market? We say, oh, this has only gained 20% in the last 6 months, and we're upset about that. Of course, excellent box toppers in this, one each. I did the patron sealed sale on the Zendikar collector boxes recently. I had one buyer who asked about buying more master cases. If that was you, get back with me. We can make something work. Wilds of Eldraine set boxes. How the heck are these $200? This is still standard legal, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to be completely off my rocker to be wrong about that. A standard legal set box, $200. I'll take it because I was heavily invested in the collector boxes. Another one I just recently ran a patron sealed sale on. Ended up being a $46 discount to my patrons for those collector boxes. Man, these have really come up just in the last 3 months. They've come up, golly, 45% about in 3 months. I just don't get this. I mean, I would expect Watsy to just slam us with another reprint of this. Why are they not doing that? If this is still standard legal, we have these long rotations now. I don't get it. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty set boxes. Now, this has rotated out of standard. $131. And they had that kind of false start where they jumped all the way. Well, no, we have to go back further for that. I had thought these had gotten up to 150 at some point. Okay. Either my memory's faulty, maybe we have to look. Yeah, we have to look even further back. There we go. September of last year. Yeah, we're already in April. So with September of last year, these went up and got up to market price of $149. And then they rotated, and I guess everybody said, well, fire sell it. It's rotation time. Let's get rid of them and be done with it. And that made the price come way, way, way back down. If I'm going to talk for an hour, I have to have something to drink. Modern Horizons 2 set booster boxes climbed all the way up to $219 now. Very sad. Yes, so flat 218 market price. The market right now is 214. You know, I once in a while I get a question from someone about why I kind of interchangeably use market price and current price. Well, if something is going up and some historical price was lower than the current price, I'll take the higher of the current market price or the current lowest ask price. Because it doesn't really matter that the market price right now is 214 on this. You ain't buying them off a TCG player for less than 219. So, you know, you use the one that's more realistic. And oftentimes in the present, that's going to be the current lowest ask price. And in the past, that's going to be a historical market price that's a trailing average of sales at the time. So yeah, the fetch lands from this continue to slowly go up as the supply of them in the market, which is vast right now, is slowly eaten away, but the box is still not catching much of a wind upwards. I know I was watching a non-TCG a while back, and he was showing that some distributors still had this. even as long. Golly, Modern Horizons 3 came out last summer. Yeah. And that was 2 years after this, so we're getting on 3 years after this came out. And some distributors still have it. That's why the price hasn't come up much. Now, this one has come up pretty fast. We look back here to March. So less than a month ago, it was at 125 market. And today, 165 lowest ask. Wow, 33% in a month. Very, very surprising for Forgotten Realms, because as far as I know, this has remained old Gnawbone or bust in terms of valuable cards in it. It doesn't have anything like the Mystical Archives that the next set, well, not next set, 3 sets later, Strixhaven had. No, 1 set before this. That's it. Man, time starts to blur. 1 set before this, Strixhaven had the Mystical Archives, which were at least like you could get some expensive cards in unique artworks. This did not have that. The showcase version of AFR was the parchment cards, and man, those just, they looked like ass and they never took off. So 165, very, very surprising to see this. This was one of the early sets that I took a big bet on, and maybe eventually it will work out, but golly, it's taking many, many years. I want to say a big bet for back then for Final Trade. I think I have like a dozen of these boxes. And Strixhaven, 127. So where was this? Back in January, 112. Okay. So steadily moving up. At least this has the Mystical Archives in it, 1 per pack. You have to go to the collector boxes to get the Japanese language variation Mystical Archives, or you have to go to the Japanese set boxes. But 127, very, very slow appreciation on this. Lord of the Rings set booster boxes. This is another one where I have this like gut feeling it's done something more recently. So if we go back here to October, it was 165 and now it's 205 essentially. So 25% gain since October. That's what, 5 months? Not bad. I've heard rumors of this going out of print. I've heard rumors that it was to be supported for 2 years, which means it would have been soft out of print last summer. I don't know the validity of any of those statements, but the fact that the boxes have climbed 25% in the last 5 months means there's probably not a giant glut of it hanging out at distributions and at card stores everywhere. Only 65 boxes in the market right now. And wow, wait, 65 boxes in the market? Yeah, that looks believable based on that list. And in the last 6 months, it sold 1,200? How many did it sell in the last month? 235? My goodness. My goodness. Okay. Well, we'll see how many boxes unlisted as of now can be coaxed out of the closet on this in the coming months. But, man, yeah, one of the investors I work with took a big position in this probably about 8 or 9 months ago. Maybe eventually we'll bring it to a sealed sale for the patrons, give them a big discount. Double Masters 2022, now a 3-year-old product, $300. We're going to go back a whole year, $230. So it's gained a little under 33% in the last year. It's pretty good. Man, the collector boxes are still struggling. I have a lot to say about those. I'll wait till we actually get to the collector boxes of 2022 to talk about it. But these are good boxes, lots of great cards. Mana Drain. If anyone remembers all the drama around that card when this came out, golly. Strixhaven draft boxes, 105 plus the shipping. Okay, so 115. And yeah, TCG players been having some problem with some of these plots. And it's weird. It always seems like it's the 3-month plot that just sometimes doesn't get data. Okay, let's go back a whole year. $93, and now it's 115. So it's gained, what, $23, $24? So up 25% in a year. Not bad, but the problem is that for so many years, this sold for below wholesale. And, you wouldn't have known when it was going to start turning up. So it almost never would have been a good bet. I know I have at least a couple of boxes of this in one of the closets around this place. Baldur's Gate draft booster boxes. I'd have to go dig out the Post-it note where I kept all my records of this, but I probably opened close to 200 boxes of this. Man, There was so much inverted EV in this for such a long time, and the boxes were so cheap because it was just so overprinted when it came out. $119, and just look at how this line has gone nearly continuously up. If we go back an entire year, it was $93 then, so it's gained what, $27? Wow, $27 in the last year. Over 93, so that puts it at about what, 28% increase in the last year. Golly. Bull markets are an amazing thing. You know, you just have to the fundamental problem though, and the problem with all investing, the thing that you always wrestle with is, when do you tie your money up in a product? And obviously there were times when I was buying this, I want to say at something like $65 a box. And yeah, I could have tied up a ton of money in it, but at the time you could open it and you could sell all the singles and you could make more than the 120 you can make off the box today. And so it's always an issue. You have to make the discrete decision at a point in time to tie your money up. And then you have to wait and see what happens. And that's why people who look backwards too often and say, oh, well, you know, you made a bad choice there, or you bought $3 too high or something like that, they're not realizing you didn't have that information when you made the decision. Every moment in time, you have to decide, do I buy or do I not buy? Do I sell or do I not sell? Forgotten Realms, draft boxes, $140. Wow. So the set boxes were still about $20 above this, which you would expect. The draft boxes just are not as richly filled with great cards, but man. And we have 76 in the market. What did we sell in the last month? 49. Yeah. Time Spiral Remastered. I am so discouraged by this product. Just not getting more action, not going up better. I thought this was such a great product. It was so well engineered. It had so many good cards in it, but I don't know what the whole story is. I wish we could know what the print run was of this, how much of it went to Amazon, because that was the real problem when it came out. Card stores wanted as much as they could get. WotC cut allocations to distribution, who had to cut the allocations to the card store, and then WotC dumped all the rest of it up onto Amazon. I wish we could know those numbers. It would help fill in the picture of what really happened with this product. 254 today. I guess that's pretty good. I mean, at least it's moved up some. I had this on my monthly sales list for patrons for a while last year. I don't quite remember what price. Somewhere around $230, I would have guessed. Something like that. So at least it's moved up a bit. I think I have an opportunity to get a bunch more of this. I wish it would move up nicely to, you know, $300, $400 range, so then I could offer a big discount on it to my patrons. Modern Horizons 2 draft boxes, still $195. A year ago, were they in the 170s? Yep, 173. Okay, so they've moved up $25 in a year, but man, that's still only, what, 16, 18%, something like that? Not as good as everything else you would expect. And of course, you do expect them to lag the set boxes. I believe Modern Horizons was the one where the set boxes were engineered extra good. And so, like, the normal ratio of about 15% more rares and mythics in a set box than in a draft box, it was something like 25% more for Modern Horizons 2 set over the draft boxes. Dominaria Remaster Draft, 144. Good to see that at least coming up somewhere. I got a couple of boxes in, I want to say the 80s or 90s. I got them on Black Friday 2023, which in retrospect we figured out was the absolute bottom of the market. And man, collector boxes had already started going on a tear, and it's just the market was still so flooded with the previous several years of boxes that it took a while for prices to tighten and to start coming up. So price-wise, that was the bottom of the market. WotC had already changed course on the collector boxes over a year before that, but man, it's amazing how those kind of lags work, how you have to have time for things to process through the system, and how it makes it harder to remember the past. It makes it harder to remember that, oh yeah, I mean, collector boxes obviously changed their composition by the time Phyrexia came out at the beginning of 23, But then the market didn't bottom until Black Friday of 23. And then it's been pretty steadily upwards since then until the last couple of months when we started to see some more sideways action. And we'll talk more about that when we get over to collector boxes. Double feature, well, man, 170 and now we're down to 156. Okay, so it's come down about $15 recently. And of course, part of that's going to be Innistrad Remastered. It's going to hurt that. You're going to have probably Meat Hook Massacre and, you know, several other of the best cards that will have been reprinted in Innistrad Remastered. So not terribly surprising to see this come down a little bit. Now, if we zoom out to the whole year, it's gone up $3 in the last year. Again, this is another great product. I could get another huge amount of this for patrons for a sealed sale, but, you know, until the price goes up some more and I can offer a bigger discount for them, it's just, it doesn't seem like anything that people would really be interested in. Play boxes, you know, for the most part, play boxes are doing great. They're really, they've kind of accomplished what WotC needed them to do. WotC needed to raise prices again to deal with inflation. They needed to simplify logistics and supply chain. And really, you know, the market has finally taken to the play boxes, especially now that they've cut the packs from 36 to 30. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on play boxes. I wanted to look at Tarkir since that is still scheduled to get to full release next Friday. So 126. And, you know, these we expect should come down to the low 100s a couple of weeks after release. So the market will get their fill of it and it'll come down. If you can wait to buy, just wait several weeks. You'll save $20 a box. Okay, collector boxes, Commander Masters, and famously one of the most, well, I hate saying that again and again, one of the most overprinted products. Well, one of the products that really did get a reputation for how vastly it was printed. It was priced way too high. It crashed like crazy. What have we done in the last year? 198 up to 256. So 25% gain in the last year. Yeah, I have another one of my investors that I work with that partners with Final Trade, and he was buying these steadily. We were talking about it all through 2024, and so he was putting together a big stack of them. I don't recall, it was many dozen, something like that, but excuse me. We'll see if we can get this up to 300 or so and then offer a nice big discount on it at some point. Aether Drift, 185. Very sad, below wholesale. Man, not a lot of opportunities to see that in the last couple of years, but I guess it just, you know, it was another hat set. That's the real problem. It's all your favorite Magic characters, and now they're wearing race car hats. Just stop it with the hat sets already. 185. I wish we could get back to normal Magic lore, high fantasy, things that we would recognize, what we want, but we're not there yet. And with the amount of time it takes to turn the ship, it's probably going to take another 12 to 18 months. So just poor performance on these. And, you know, we're at 1 year plus now since Murders came out, and the collector boxes of those crashed all the way down to 135 after release, and they've recovered up to close to 200. Outlaws didn't crash as hard, but it's recovered better. It's up into the 210s. I know I have its tab open here somewhere, but hopefully we don't have to wait so long to see this recover. I'd like to see the market strong enough that it can absorb these collector boxes. Call time, 193. So yeah, we see this one has come down, but how much? So it peaked here, 197 market, and it's showing 191 market. Okay, so it's fallen 3%. 3%, guys. But the interesting thing is it's fallen that 3% on the collector boxes as the set boxes have come up to $150. And so this is one of those things Rudy talks about a lot, where he does not believe you can have those boxes be too far out of whack. I think the correlation between them should be pretty weak, because especially in this time period, WotC just was thrashing all over the place in what it put in collector boxes, and then it was also more or less linearly increasing the richness of the set boxes. And so it's really hard to establish and say there should be some type of predictable correlation between them. And then it's just going to vastly vary on how strong the set was. Is it old Gnawbone or bust? Or, is it a set that had a lot of great cards that remained staples of various formats? So for me, I know there should be a correlation. It's just I'm not going to hang much weight on it. Innistrad Remastered 262 from the 340 all the way down to 262. They've lost $80. WotC continues to dump them on Amazon, but right now, even with the discount, yeah, you would save about $14 on Amazon over buying them on TCG Player. So yeah, the dumps continue on Amazon, even though we're only in the first week of the new financial quarter now. I guess they have a lot of these boxes to dump. On the other hand, the same thing happened with Ravnica Remastered last year. WotC dumped so freaking hard on that box for so long. And what do we see today? $375 for Ravnica Remastered. So, if the genie would come and tell me that these were going to be $375 a year from now, yeah, I would buy as hard as I could. Dominaria United. These have seen a nice upswing recently. So February, less than 2 months ago, they were $200. Now they're $225. So gained about 12.5% in less than 2 months. If we go back a year, they were at $170. Wow. So $55. Yeah, that's closer to 30% in the last year. What does the volume look like? 127 in the market, and in the last month it sold 46. Okay, so expect it to go up kind of slow. Dragonstorm 350. I feel bad. I put in my Friday sealed deals, these boxes on eBay for $300 at the time, and man, they've swung around so much on TCG Player. You can see they bottomed out here at $240 and then jumped up. It's just been a wild ride so far. I don't know what to expect from this. When you see things, hat sets like Aetherdrift and Cowboys, or Outlaws, not Cowboys, and Murders, all three of those heavy hat sets, and all three of them done terribly. Tarkir is closer to the kind of core theming that we expect from Magic. Hopefully that means it can do better here. Hopefully you guys were buying on the Amazon dumps last month. $260-ish, I believe, is what they were after your Amazon Prime credit card rebate. So, wait, what? 46? My God! 9 listings? Oh, crap. Okay, so this comes out in a week. There's 9 listings and only 46 boxes in the market. TCG Player has this other problem where the number for sale does not always equal this number. They have some weird bugs with some of this stuff going on here. But yeah, 9 listings were a week from release. Oh no. Wow, this is going to be very, very painful. Okay, well, maybe $350 today looks cheap now. Wild, wild stuff. That's unbelievable. Yeah, Ravnica Remastered, $375. Like I said a few minutes ago, come down from $390. Okay, so it's lost about $15 in the last couple of months. And a year ago, $285. Yeah, so another one that's just kind of pulled back very slightly. I mean, $15 out of 400. Yeah, it's not much of a pullback, about 3%. Again, just like Kaldheim. So some of these pulling back a little bit. It's wild how this market is splitting up now, and some products just going crazy, some products going backwards, some of them just staying the same. We're definitely not seeing the across the board increases like we were 6 months ago. So 115 boxes in the market, 62 sold in the last month. So we'll see some steady appreciation, but yeah. Unfinity, I wanted to come take a look at this. 224, and it's another one I kind of have this feeling has done well recently. Okay, 6 months ago 160, today 224, not bad. So up 50% in the last 6 months. I can't really think if there's anything that's a staple of any format that's in this. Somebody let me know in the comments. I know they had the black bordered cards in an unset, with this, and it really irritated everybody, including me. It's like Magic has no cohesive identity anymore. Dominaria Remastered continues to be one of my greatest conviction products. I always say that. I want to always reiterate it and not back down from that stance. It has, let's see, last 6 months. Okay, started at 190 and it's 250 today. So it's gained 33% in the last 6 months. Where was it a year ago? Still at 190 a year ago. So for 6 months before that, it was flat, and then it's up 33%-ish in the last 6 months. Not too bad. So in the market, 89 boxes, and in the last month sold 55. This is a great long-term hold. You know, I ran a sale to my patrons earlier this year as one of the January sealed sales, and I want to say the price was $205, something like that. So I will be getting more of these from one of the whales I work with. They will be coming later this year. We'll do another sale at some point. Maybe some more master cases of this. And I'll definitely be buying some more myself. Zendikar Rising, another one I did a sale on recently. Man, it's unfortunate. It's come down from this 230, to a market of 225, but the lowest price box is 234 today. Interesting, a big spike of 12 sold all at once there. I still think these are great boxes, and man, the market is proving me wrong, though. There's no other explanation for them to be this old and still be in the 230s. Very sad. I've always loved these boxes. I thought they should have been higher, but the market has disagreed with me for so long. March of the Machines. This is one I recognized this about probably 6 or 8 months ago. I was looking at the depth of the market, and I saw the very low depth on this back when it was about 220, maybe something like that. And so I went in and got some more from one of my contacts, and it's been not too bad. 280 now, and yep, 6 months ago 224, and now 280. So come up a little short of 25% in the last 6 months. But how's that depth look today? 51 in the market and sold 69 in the last month. So yeah, I expect this to keep making solid progress upwards in the coming months. Outlaws 206. Did you know it had crossed back above $200 finally? What do we have? 320 in the market and 28 sold in the last month. Oof, man, that hurts. that's a year's worth of supply in the market, and that assumes no more boxes come onto the market, and there's a year's worth of supply. Oh, that hurts so bad. It's gonna take forever. Stop making hat sets, Watsy. 290 on Brothers War. Now, I was selling this on my monthly patron list for 205 all the way to a couple months ago. Yeah, 225 6 months ago, and 289. So it's taken this kind of quick leg upwards from 230. Okay, and see here the market price is trailing the current ask price by about almost $40. So that happens when the price goes up very, very quickly. 102 in the market, still a lot. 79 sold in the last month. And we're probably not going to break 300 for a while. Oof, 25 there, yeah. So, you know, we're probably looking at several more months before we solidly break 300. Doctor Who, $350 after this big buyout attempt, 45 boxes in one day, pushing the price up from low 300s to 500s, and now it's come back down to 350. And many, many boxes solidifying the price within $20 or $30 of here. So expected to move sideways for quite a while, especially as price memory of those low 300s has kept people from jumping in here and buying much. It really has not sold many boxes, 17 in the last month. So yeah, interesting data about how that buyout attempt worked, and the answer is not very well, because there were still too many boxes out there in the wild. Strixhaven collector boxes, 345, 25 in the market, and a year ago, what did we have? 226. So yeah, it's come up $120, over a 50% gain in the last year. And this is one where, I really want to just hold these boxes until I have patrons who want to do box opening videos with them. I just want to open all these boxes for my patrons on videos because, God, I love these boxes. And the Mystical Archives are just so gorgeous. Such a well-chosen set of cards and just amazing. So, 25 in the market. In the last month, sold 24. Man. Kamigawa, so many times this is whipped up towards $300 and then come back down. Maybe it can take 300 and hold it this time. Of course, the first time it did it was, January of 22. When it first came out, the Hitasugu Neon Parallel Chase cards pushed this all the way at least into the 270s. I'd have to go back and look in my data tool for the exact amounts, but we're probably eventually going to get 300, except 132 boxes sitting here, 22 in the last month. Yeah, so the sales rate is very, very low. Not a lot of buying pressure on this product. Modern Horizons 3, $425. And 3 months ago, 390. Yeah, not going up very quickly. Still quite a few boxes in the market. And I bet there are way, way more boxes just sitting out there waiting to come to market, especially since this is not even a year-old product yet. Commander Masters collector boxes. Now, these took a run up, 280 market in the last few months, and now they've come way back down. The volume's increased again, but there are just too many of these boxes out there. There are way, way, way too many. Even still, these were selling in the 270s during release week in 2022. Here we are 3 years later nearly, and they're still not even back to their release week price. There are just too many, and there's only 4 booster packs in here. And so, $70 a booster pack? Golly, that's a lot to ask somebody. And it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a long time to get these cleared out to where we see some really great price appreciation. So unless you bought them really low when they were in the doldrums during 22 and most of 23, then it's going to be a while to really realize much profit off of these. If you want them to open, go ahead and enjoy them because the price has still not gone anywhere in nearly 3 years. Just way, way, way too highly printed and way too expensive to start with. Wilds of Eldraine. So yes, like I said, $265. I sold these to my patrons for $565. I sold them to my patrons a couple nights ago at $520. And what are we looking at? Yeah, three boxes in the market, and then it gaps up to $620. So congratulations to my patrons who bought on the sealed sale number 14 a couple nights ago. In a couple of weeks, you will have already come $100 per box up. So thankfully, like I said beforehand, I did not sell them all. I got to keep some that will continue to appreciate, and we'll see what we want to do with those in the future. 49 in the market today and 38 sold in the last month. So expect some good appreciation on this going forward. And again, this is another one of those products that WotC dumped heavily on the Amazon for a long time. Foundations, $500. Who would think a standard expansion collector box, barely 6 months old? Is it even 6 months since release? No, release is not even 6 months ago yet. And it's $500. I had some of these on my monthly sales list for patrons at, $320, $370? $370, I think. And finally, a couple of people, it was literally 2 people on the same day, realized it and came in and together bought me out of them. So $500. Wow. WotC knows what it's doing with the collector boxes nowadays. Duskmourn, $278. For a standard expansion collector box, not even a year old. Very nice. Yeah, if we go out to the 1 year, its release is barely over halfway through that period. And what did we peak at? $295. So it's come down about $10. Another one of those rare ones that's pulled back in the last couple of months. And 89 in the market. 50 sold in the last month. AFR, man, there are going to be some people who are so angry at this product in the coming years. When this hits $300 and $400 and $500, there are going to be people who say, I could have bought that on an Amazon dump for $89. I could have bought that on TCG Player for years in the low 100s. It's going to make some people so angry. $225. And again, I mean, it's one of the worst boxes ever engineered. Old Gnawbone or bust. And the showcase cards, nobody really cared for. It didn't have some great foil variation, anything like that. Still tons of them out there. 116 in the market, and whoa, okay. 116 in the market, and it sold 90 last month. Wow. Wow. Wild stuff. Lost Caverns of Ixalan. So, WotC was dumping this very, very heavily. We'll go back to the 1 year chart, and we can see back here where they started dumping it back in August. It was a market price of $345. They were able to slam it and dump the price all the way down to $307 market, and it's already recovered to $337 market. So I have not seen this at a dump price on Amazon in a couple of months. So maybe they're done. Maybe they got rid of enough boxes dumping through Amazon, undercutting the market, killing the market price on TCG Player, and they're done doing it, and it's recovering now. The fact that it's recovering this fast is amazing. It shows how popular these boxes really are, and that there just may not be that many more. Wow, 66 in the market, and it sold 59 last month. That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that WotC dumped so hard for so long, so far under the market price, and yet it's coming back this strong this quickly. Dungeons and Dragons, Baldur's Gate, collector boxes, 288. Golly, I opened so many of those in the 140s. I was opening them for singles. Again, just like the draft boxes of the same set, there was so much EV in them for so long, and the boxes were so cheap. What have we done in the last 6 months? So it's gone from 206 to 288. So $80. Golly, that's a 40% increase in 6 months. I looked at my records recently, and I only have 6 boxes of these left. After opening so many, I only have 6 boxes still. I was so sad, because I would love to do box openings of this for patrons at some point. You know, you could get a double Ancient Dragon pack out of these. I got that probably 2 or 3 times in all the boxes I opened, but you could get an Ancient Dragon in the mythical slot, and then you could get it in the foil slot also. So they just made for exciting opening. How many? We have 131 in the market, and 160 sold in the last month. Wow. Wow. Lord of the Rings, the original release, $850. 24 in the market. Sold 37 in the last month. Now, over the last year, this has come up from $448 to $850, so nearly 50%, just short of 50%. No, sorry, just short of 100%. Wow, just short of 100% gain in the last year. Man, wild times, wild times. And Lord of the Rings Special Edition, back up close to $1,800. Remember when this made the first kind of head fake towards 1,000? Then it jumped up 1,500. Yeah. Okay, so that was it. It made this first jump, and then it spiked up to 1,500, and then it needed to consolidate for a while, and now it's running back up towards 1,800. This is another one, guys. I've got some boxes of this, but I can't imagine just selling the boxes. Box openings are the way I'd want to go, especially with the Hildebrandt cards. I'd want to see those. And you know, these have the movie poster serialized lottery tickets in them, which is really what has driven the price so hard of these. What kind of depth do we have? 55 in the market, sold 15 in the last month. So yes, very sparse sales because they're so expensive. So it's going to be a while. You know, we'll at some point we'll cross 2,000, but it could be quite a while, 6 to 12 months. Phyrexia. So another interesting one that in the last year it had this spike up to 350, pulled back quite a bit, and it's been trying to regain that since then. So we're at 375 at this point, 41 in the market, 96 sold in the last month. Guys, 41 in the market, 96 sold in the last month. Where do you think this is going to go? Unbelievable. Such wild, wild times. I had this on my monthly sales list for a long time. I want to say at low 300s, but I sold out of it probably 6-7 months ago. I still have a couple cases of it to eventually sell. Okay, so we're going to just superficially talk about Flesh and Blood. You know, there's that interesting thing I had talked about a couple weeks ago where some of these early Fab 2.0 and the very latest Fab 2.0 boxes are breaking above $100. And so we see Rosetta, Outsiders is on the early end, Dynasty's on the early end, Hunted is very recent, and of course High Seas is the next one that will be coming out. And I thought we had one more in this club. I'm probably just looking right at it and not seeing it. So we've had that, and then we've had the early Flesh and Blood boxes, Flesh and Blood 1.0 you might call it, that are still just hanging around. $55 for Monarch First Edition. Still can't break 120 on Arcane Rising Unlimited. Welcome to Wraith Unlimited. Been out of print for, golly, 2.5, maybe 3.5 years. I'd have to go back and look at the calendar. I think 2.5. Still $65. I mean, this should not be this cheap. So I think there's tons of opportunity in these early boxes. And I don't know what it's going to take, though. But it's amazing seeing how thin the market depth is getting on these early boxes, and yet the prices just are not yet responding. I think there's still just a complacent attitude amongst too many investors that these will never do anything, and yet we see early Fab 2.0 boxes breaking above 100, and it's like, why do you think those should do something, but Fab 1.0 should never do anything? I think the market is being very illogical about this, but I have no idea when it will turn. And the longer it takes, the harder it will break when it does. Moving on, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I just generally wanted to talk about two things here. Surging Sparks. So yes, we have seen the market price come down $264 all the way down to $245. So market price has come down $20. But now what we see is the current low ask is back above the market price, which means the prices are going back up. And so I don't know if that means that the resupply has been exhausted and now we should expect prices to march back up to 300, or if this is just a short anomaly while people buy hard for this couple of weeks. I have no idea. You know, you would think they could print more, but it may still be the case that Pokemon is literally selling cards faster than they can print them off of multiple high-speed 4-color process printing presses. I have no idea. But it may be prudent to go ahead and buy 1/4 or 1/3 of what you'd eventually like to have. And hey, if it crashes down to 180, congrats to all of us. We get to accumulate at 180, and we'll never be sad about the boxes we bought at 250. Twilight Masquerade, similar kind of thing happening. 232 on the market price, come down to 211. So again, lost about $21 a market price, but then here we're about $5 above that price. So it may indicate that the reprints, as they have been in the last month or two, are getting exhausted and the price is going to start coming back up. I guess what you could do is, you know, you could set a figurative alarm clock at a market price $5 above what it is today. And you say, well, if it hits that, I'll go ahead and buy. I'll assume that the reprints have been exhausted and I'll go ahead and start buying. And finally back into Sword and Shield era Pokemon. I'll cover a couple of these. I think this is interesting because we have seen some pullback on them a little bit. So let's go to 6. Of course, that doesn't work. Okay, so we were at 489 market on Fusion Strike. We came all the way down to 426, and we're back to 475. So we took a little round trip bear market, and we're nearly back to where we started 3 months ago. Oh boy, when people tell you that closets are just so absolutely full of Pokemon boxes that they can never go up in price, well, here's the pullback of a bunch of boxes coming out of the closet. It's a pullback of $14 over 3 months. And we've nearly retaken the price from 3 months ago. All right, let's check out Chilling Reign, 342. We'll call it up here. Bottomed around 305, and it's back to 316 on the 6 month. Yeah, so that was all the interesting that happened in that time period. But this is our Pokemon Sword and Shield bear market. After these huge gains, let's for fun, let's go back a whole year. $209, and today $316. 50% gain. 50% gain in the last year. None of us is sad about this. Who cares that it peaked at 342 and that it's down? We're still up 50% in the last year. Evolving Skies peaked up here 1382, and today it's 1304 market price. Could you imagine trying to convince anyone they should be sad about that when a year ago it was 686? So it's still up more than 100% in the last year. Wow. Sometime in the next couple of days, I am going to have my 6-month update on long-term Pokemon box prices, so don't miss that. Lost Origin, let's see if it's got the same story. Well, it peaked up here at 385 before having a brief bear market, and now it's 391 on the market price. So yeah, this is what a bear market of Sword and Shield looks like. Well, this one didn't even really come back down at all, just kept marching up. Let's compare it to a year ago. A year ago, 169, today, 270. So yeah, up $100 in the last year. And finally, the last thing we'll discuss today, Brilliant Stars. Do we have, yeah, maybe it had the same kind of peak in the time period. It's also perceived as just a better, stronger product. So $291, bottomed about $5 lower, and then recovered. Oh boy, I love being so heavily invested in Sword and Shield era product. It is amazing. It's amazing because for so long you had people telling you that, you know, antiques and collectibles aren't supposed to work this way. Markets don't work like that. It was never meant to be like this. And yet here we are. A Pokemon bear market lasts less than 3 months and has already mostly recovered. And what do you think it's going to look like a year from now? 2 years from now? When do you think we'll have our second Sword and Shield era box cross $1,000? It'll probably be Fusion Strike. It might be Chilling Reign. When do you think that's going to happen? You think it's going to take another year? I'm not going to be sad if it takes a whole another year. Man. So, market's pretty sideways. Stock market's in turmoil over tariff stuff this week. We'll see how that flows through. We'll see how long it lasts. We'll see how long general turmoil lasts. How much it comes through to the TCG market and what it does here. You know, like I keep saying, I feel kind of bad saying it, but I kind of hope we hit a big bear market in the TCG world, because we've had 2 years of bull market for Magic. We've had a good bull run for Scarlet and Violet, a great bull run for Sword and Shield. And getting a bit of a pullback on that stuff, getting to lay in heavily to some of the more recent Magic products pretty hard, some of the upcoming Magic products, lay in a heavy position of Scarlet and Violet, it would be really nice to be able to do that. So Again, I feel terrible saying it, but I hope we get a good bear market and we can really accumulate for the coming years, because we see now the reward for people who stayed steady and accumulated through 21, 22, and 23 all the way to the bottom of the market on Black Friday of 23. When we see things now like AFR set boxes at over $150, even AFR collector boxes at what, 220? We see how so many of those things have recovered so spectacularly, how a lot of these even more recent boxes from 23 and 24 just do not have great market depth. I'm talking Magic collector boxes. Not great market depth on a lot of them. And man, if we can have just a little bit of a bear market, pull back a little bit, let some people get some good positions, give some good sales to the patrons like we keep trying to do consistently, and then we'll all enjoy another good long bull run in, say, 12, 18, 24 months. That's what I'd really like to see. Let me know what you think, guys. I love making these long market walk videos, and I enjoy that there's a subset of my viewers who really appreciate them. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.